There are two lives that every single one of us is living, right now, at this very moment. There is the life you imagine, the person you know you could be. Focused, disciplined, respected, the architect of your own destiny. And then there is the life that is being built by what you did yesterday and what you will likely do again today. For most people, the gap between those two lives is the source of all their private frustration and quiet regret. We wait. We hope. We search for that magical spark, that feeling we call motivation, believing that one day it will finally arrive and stay. But what if the very thing you are chasing is the reason you are trapped? What if I told you that building your life on the foundation of feeling motivated is like building a house on the shifting sands of the desert? This is not a talk about hype. It is not about feeling good for a moment. This is a serious lecture on architecture, on the timeless principles of building a life of discipline, a structure so sound it stands firm long after the unreliable feelings of excitement have faded away. What you are about to hear is a blueprint, a design for closing the gap forever. The question is not whether the design works. The question is, are you ready to begin the work? Before we can lay the first stone, we must first understand the fundamental choice that precedes all meaningful progress. It is a choice you make every single day, whether you are conscious of it or not. It is the choice between being the architect of your life or merely being a tenant in the house of your circumstances. What does an architect do? An architect begins with a vision, yes, but they do not stop there. A vision without a blueprint is a hallucination. The architect translates that grand vision into a detailed, practical plan. They study the terrain, the ground upon which they will build. In our lives, this is the act of unflinching self-assessment. Knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your tendencies, your patterns of self-sabotage. You cannot build a skyscraper on a swamp without first understanding the nature of the ground beneath you. After studying the terrain, the architect draws the blueprint. This is the design, the structure, the system. It dictates where the load-bearing walls will go, where the plumbing will run, how the electrical systems will connect. These are the core habits, the non-negotiable routines, the daily disciplines that support the entire structure. The blueprint is not emotional. It is mathematical. It is logical. It works on paper before a single ounce of concrete is ever poured. Finally, the architect oversees the building process, brick by brick, day by day. They understand that a magnificent cathedral is not wished into existence. It is assembled through a series of small, repetitive, often tedious actions, performed with consistency over a great period of time. The laying of a single brick is not exciting, but 1,000 bricks, laid with precision according to the blueprint, becomes a wall. 100,000 bricks becomes a fortress. That is the way of the architect. It is a path of intention, foresight, and deliberate action. Now, consider the way of the tenant. The tenant does not design the house they live in. They simply move in. They accept the layout as it is. If the plumbing is faulty, they learn to live with it. If the foundation is cracked, they put a rug over it. They are at the mercy of the original design. And more often than not, that design was an accident. It was the product of their upbringing, their environment, their initial reactions to life, a structure they never consciously chose. The tenant's life is governed by reaction. The phone rings, they answer. An email arrives, they respond. A new crisis erupts, they drop everything to fight the fire. Their days are not designed. They are dictated by external demands. They hope for a good landlord, for fair weather, for things to work out. They are passive occupants in their own existence. Many people who believe they are architects are, in fact, only behaving as very hopeful tenants. They have a dream, a vision of a different house, but they are unwilling to draw the blueprint and lay the bricks. They are waiting for the landlord of luck or the construction crew of inspiration to show up and do the work for them. So you must ask yourself, with brutal honesty, have my last 5 years been a product of deliberate design or a series of reactions? Am I building or am I merely coping? Am I the architect or have I been living like a tenant? The answer to that question is the beginning of all true change. Now, let us address the primary tool the hopeful tenant relies upon, motivation. Our society worships at this altar. We consume motivational quotes. We seek out charismatic speakers. We chase the feeling of readiness. But this is a profound and dangerous misunderstanding. Motivation is not the sturdy fuel for a long journey. It is the chemical spark of ignition, and a furnace cannot run on sparks alone. Let me tell you a story. I once knew a young man, full of remarkable talent and boundless passion. Every few months, he would come to me with a new grand idea. First, it was a revolutionary new business. He was electric with excitement. He worked 18-hour days for 2 weeks. He built a website, printed business cards. The motivation was palpable. Then, he hit the first real obstacle, a legal issue, a difficult client, the sheer, grinding reality of the work. The initial spark faded. The project languished. 3 months later, he returned with a new spark. This time, it was a plan to get into peak physical condition. He bought the equipment, the clothes, the supplements. For 2 weeks, he was a model of discipline. Then, a rainy day came. He felt tired, and he skipped a session. The perfect streak was broken. The feeling was gone. The equipment began to collect dust. This young man was not lazy. He was not without desire. He was an addict. He was addicted to the feeling of starting, not to the process of building. He was chasing the fleeting high of motivation. His life was a series of brilliant, explosive starts and quiet, fizzling ends. This is what I call the cycle of motivational dependency. It operates in 4 predictable stages. Stage 1 is inspiration. You encounter a new idea. You see someone else's success. A powerful emotion washes over you. A feeling of, I can do this. This is the spark. It feels wonderful. It feels like truth. Stage 2 is intense, unstructured action. Fueled by the spark, you dive in head first. You rely on sheer willpower and enthusiasm. You work long hours, you make drastic changes, you tell everyone about your new commitment. This stage can last for a few days, or even a few weeks. Stage 3 is the plateau of reality. This is the most critical stage. The work becomes, work. It becomes repetitive. The results slow down. The initial emotional high is gone. The task is no longer new and exciting. It is now familiar and demanding. This is where the feeling of motivation abandons you. Stage 4 is disillusionment and retreat. Because your entire strategy was based on the feeling, its absence is interpreted as failure. You think this isn't working, or maybe I don't have what it takes, or I'm just not feeling it anymore. You stop, and you begin, consciously or unconsciously, to scan the horizon for the next spark, the next source of inspiration, so you can feel that wonderful high of starting all over again. This cycle is the single greatest destroyer of long-term potential. Even worse, it demolishes the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship you have with yourself. Every time you complete this cycle, you break a promise to yourself. You teach yourself that your word is not binding. You erode your own self-trust, your own integrity. And without self-trust, you can never build anything of lasting value. You will always be a tenant, hoping the next landlord is better than the last. The architect understands this. The architect knows that feelings are weather, but the blueprint is stone. The architect designs a system of work that does not require the sun of motivation to be shining. The structure is designed to withstand the rain, the wind, and the long, cold winters of the soul. So if motivation is not the answer, what is? Many people, upon reaching this conclusion, make another critical error. They decide the problem must be a lack of discipline or willpower. They try to white-knuckle their way through the plateau. They try to force themselves to act. They treat their lack of follow-through as a moral failing. They say to themselves, I'm just lazy. I'm not disciplined. I lack willpower. This diagnosis is not only wrong, it is destructive. It is like blaming a beautifully designed car for not running when you have filled its tank with water instead of gasoline. The problem is not the engine's desire to run. The problem is the fuel you are giving it. The problem is not your character. It is your strategy. Let me state this with all the clarity I can offer. You do not have a discipline problem. You have a design problem. Imagine a gardener who wishes to grow a magnificent oak tree. The novice gardener takes a perfect acorn and throws it onto hard, dry, unprepared soil. He comes back every day, looks at the unyielding ground, and grows frustrated. He blames the acorn. He blames the sun. He blames his own lack of a green thumb. He is focusing on the outcome, while ignoring the process entirely. Now, consider the master gardener. The master gardener spends almost all of his initial energy on the soil. He tills it. He enriches it with nutrients. He ensures it has proper drainage and access to water. He creates an environment in which the acorn has the highest possible probability of sprouting and thriving. He does not focus on the acorn. He focuses on the system that will support the acorn. He knows that if the system is right, growth is not a matter of hope, but a matter of time. Our lives are the garden. Our goals are the seeds. Our daily habits, routines, and structures are the soil. Most people are throwing good seeds onto bad soil, year after year, and wondering why their lives are barren. They are trying to use willpower to force a seed to grow on concrete. It is a futile and exhausting battle. The architect, like the master gardener, withdraws their energy from the futile fight of moment-to-moment decision-making, and instead invests that energy up front in the design of the system. There is a profound statement that encapsulates this entire philosophy. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your goals are your desires. They are where you point the ship, but your systems are the rudder, the engine, and the integrity of the hull. In a storm, the strength of your desire matters little. It is the strength of your system that will determine whether you reach the shore or are lost to the sea. Therefore, the work is not to cultivate more willpower. The work is to design a daily life where less willpower is needed. The work is to prepare the soil. This brings us to the purpose of our time together today. If we are to reject the hopeful waiting of the tenant and the fleeting highs of the motivation addict, we must embrace the way of the architect. We must learn to design and build systems. When people hear the words system, structure, or routine, they often imagine a prison. They picture a life that is rigid, boring, and devoid of spontaneity. This is a fundamental misunderstanding. A well-designed structure does not create a prison. It creates freedom. A trellis does not imprison a grapevine. It provides the structure that allows the vine to grow upwards, towards the sun, to escape the damp ground, and to bear 100 times more fruit than it ever could lying in a tangled heap. The structure provides directed freedom. A strong personal system does the same. It automates the essential. It makes your foundational habits the things that truly move your life forward, non-negotiable and nearly automatic. This act of automation frees up your most valuable resources, your mental energy and your decision-making power. Instead of spending your morning fighting a battle over whether or not to exercise, the system has already made that decision for you. The battle was won months ago when you designed the blueprint. Now that energy is free to be used on higher-level problems, to be creative at your work, to be present with your family, to solve a complex challenge. The tenant is exhausted by 1,000 small, meaningless decisions every day. The architect makes a few powerful decisions once, and then builds a system to execute them automatically. That is the difference between a life of frantic activity and a life of focused progress. In the remainder of our time together, we will lay out the 10 foundational principles of this personal architecture. We will move from the philosophical to the intensely practical. We will explore the profound power of embracing the mundane, the boring tasks that are the true bedrock of success. We will learn how to build a foundation so strong that it can not only withstand life's inevitable storms, but actually grow stronger in them. We will give you the tools not to eliminate failure, but to build a system that anticipates it, learns from it, and uses it as fuel for the journey ahead. This is the work. It is the most important work you will ever do. To take the raw material of your potential, the vision of the life you imagine, and to build it, brick by brick, into your reality. The choice stands before you, as it does every morning. Will this be another day of tenancy, of reaction, of hoping for a favorable wind? Or will this be the day you pick up the tools, unroll the blueprint, and begin the deliberate, noble work of the architect? Let us begin. We have established the fundamental choice that stands before every one of us: to be the architect of a life of design or to be the tenant in a life of circumstance. We have decided to reject the fleeting and unreliable nature of motivation as a foundation. Now, we must lay the first stone of our new architecture. This brings us to our first, and arguably most important, principle. It is the bedrock upon which all other disciplines are built. If you grasp this concept in its entirety, if you allow it to settle deep within your philosophy, you will have already separated yourself from the vast majority of people who drift through life. The principle is this: you must build a foundation for your stormy days. You must lock in habits that function when you are not functioning at your best. Let us first address a dangerous and modern myth, the fantasy of perpetual positivity. Our culture promotes an idea of an endless summer, a life where, if you just have the right mindset, the right affirmations, the right morning routine, every day will be a good day. You will wake up energized, focused, and ready to conquer the world every single day without fail. This is a philosophy of childhood. It is a dangerous fantasy that sets people up for profound and repeated failure. The first law of a mature and reality-based existence is this: storms are inevitable. Life is not a gentle upward slope. It is a series of seasons. There are glorious summers of success and abundance, where everything you touch seems to turn to gold. There are fruitful autumns of harvest, where you reap the rewards of your past efforts. There are hopeful springs of new beginnings, full of labor and planting. And then there is winter. Winter always comes. It is not a matter of if, but when. Winter can be an economic downturn. It can be a personal health crisis. It can be the loss of a relationship. It can be a period of deep, unexplainable fatigue. It can be a season of grief, of confusion, of feeling utterly lost. Winter is the storm. It is the bad day, the bad week, the bad month. Anyone can look good in the summer. Anyone can feel motivated when the sun is shining and the harvest is plentiful. But the true measure of the substance of a person, the true strength of their philosophy and the integrity of their life's architecture, is revealed in the winter. What do you do when it is cold and dark and nothing seems to be growing? The wise architect, when designing a great building, does not design it merely for a perfect, sunny afternoon. That would be malpractice. The architect studies the history of the region. They account for the possibility of earthquakes, of hurricanes, of floods, of blizzards. They sink the foundation deep into the earth, down to the bedrock, so that when the inevitable storm comes, the structure holds. Your life deserves no less foresight. To build a set of habits and disciplines that only work when you feel inspired is to build a beautiful beach house directly in the path of a tidal wave. It is an architecture of disaster. So, we must begin by accepting reality. There will be days when your mind is heavy. There will be mornings when your body is drained. There will be times when everything feels harder than it should. These days are not an exception to the plan. They must be a part of the plan. To do this, we must first dissect the anatomy of what we call a bad day. It is not a single monstrous entity. It is a confluence of predictable factors. We must understand it to design for it. First, there is physical depletion. Perhaps you slept poorly. Perhaps you ate something that disagreed with you. Perhaps you are fighting off an illness, or are simply exhausted from a long week. Your body is a biological machine, not a machine of pure will. Its resources are finite. On these days, your physical capacity is simply lower. To expect high-octane performance when the tank is near empty is to invite burnout. Second, there is emotional turbulence. An argument with a loved one, a disappointment at work, a piece of bad news, a lingering feeling of sadness or anxiety. Our emotions are the weather of the soul. Sometimes they are calm and clear. Other times they are a raging tempest. These feelings are real, and they consume immense amounts of our internal energy, leaving little for proactive, disciplined work. Third, there is mental fog. This is the state of overwhelm. Your to-do list is a mile long. You have dozens of unanswered emails. You are juggling multiple projects, and your mind feels cluttered, scattered, and unable to focus on a single task. It jumps from one worry to the next. This state of decision fatigue makes even the simplest action feel like climbing a mountain. Finally, there is external chaos. An unexpected bill arrives. A client creates an emergency. A family member needs you. Life does not respect your perfectly planned schedule. It will throw interruptions and crises into your path, demanding your immediate attention and derailing your intended course. These are the components of the storm: physical depletion, emotional turbulence, mental fog, and external chaos. On any given bad day, you are likely experiencing a combination of these. Now, knowing this, consider the folly of basing your actions on how you feel. To make your feelings the prerequisite for action is to give veto power over your entire future to your most tired, most stressed, most distracted, and most overwhelmed self. It is a strategy for guaranteed stagnation. Think of two farmers. The first farmer is a man of moods. He wakes up, looks at the sky, and checks his feelings. If the sun is shining and he feels strong and optimistic, he will work tirelessly in his fields. He can get a tremendous amount done on these days. But if it is cloudy, or he feels a bit tired, or his back aches, he decides it is not a good day for farming. He will wait for a better feeling tomorrow. His fields are a patchwork of thriving crops and overgrown weeds. His harvest is a matter of chance. The second farmer is a man of the seasons. He is a man of the system. He wakes up and consults the calendar, not his feelings. The calendar says it is time to plant, so he plants. It does not matter if it is hot, or if he is tired, or if he would rather be doing something else. The system dictates the action. The calendar says it is time to weed, so he weeds. The work is tedious and unglamorous. He does it anyway. His feelings are irrelevant to the task. His actions are tied to the blueprint of the season. At the end of the year, which farmer do you suppose has the reliable, abundant harvest? Which farmer has built a life of substance? You must become the second farmer in the fields of your own life. And to do so, you must engage in the most profound act of personal freedom available to us. You must sever the link between how you feel and what you do. This is where we get practical. This is where the blueprint takes shape. The core tactic for building an all-weather foundation is the minimum viable habit, or what I prefer to call your base level contract. For every important habit you wish to build, you must define 3 levels of execution. Level 3 is your good day performance. This is you at your best. You are energized, focused, and motivated. On a level 3 day, you might go to the gym for a full hour, write 2,000 words, or meditate for 30 minutes. Level 2 is your average day performance. You are not feeling amazing, but you are not feeling terrible either. You are functional. On a level 2 day, you might go to the gym for 30 minutes, write 500 words, or meditate for 10 minutes. Level 1 is your stormy day performance. This is your base level contract. This is the absolute, non-negotiable minimum you have promised to yourself. This is the version of the habit you will perform on your worst days, when you are depleted, turbulent, and foggy. On a level 1 day, your contract for the gym might be simply to put on your workout clothes and walk for 10 minutes. Your contract for writing might be to open the document and write 1 sentence. Your contract for meditation might be to sit in silence for 60 seconds. The numbers are not the point. The point is the philosophy behind them. The purpose of the level 1 execution is not the result it produces. The 10-minute walk will not transform your physique. The 1 sentence will not finish your book. Its purpose is far more important. The purpose of the level 1 execution is to preserve your identity. When you honor your base level contract on a difficult day, you cast a vote for your new identity. You are not casting a vote for being a great athlete. You are casting a vote for being the kind of person who shows up, no matter what. You are not casting a vote for being a prolific writer. You are casting a vote for being the kind of person who honors their commitment to their craft. This defeats the all-or-nothing mindset that destroys so many dreams. Most people think, I don't have the energy for a full workout, so I will do nothing. They declare the day as 0, and that 0 day makes it far easier to have another 0 day tomorrow. Soon they have fallen off completely. The architect, however, refuses to book a 0. They will take the level 1 win. It may feel small, but it is infinitely larger than 0. It keeps the chain of consistency intact. It tells the internal resistance, even on your best day, you cannot make me quit. This is how you remove negotiation from your life. The moment you wake up on a stormy day, your mind will dispatch its most skilled negotiator. I call it the internal lawyer. It will present a masterful case for inaction. It will say, you are too tired. You deserve a break. You can start again tomorrow when you feel better. Just this once. This internal lawyer is very, very persuasive. And if you agree to enter into negotiations with it, you will lose most of the time. A system is a pre-made verdict. The trial is over. The decision was made long ago, in a moment of clarity and strength. When you designed your base level contract, you do not debate the verdict. You simply execute the sentence. The sentence is your 10-minute walk. The sentence is your 1 paragraph of reading. The sentence is tracking that 1 expense. There is no drama. There is no debate. There is only the simple execution of a pre-made decision. So let us be clear about what this looks like in practice. If your goal is intellectual growth, your level 1 is not to finish a chapter. It is to read 1 page, or even 1 paragraph. Because the identity of a reader is maintained by reading, not by the quantity read. If your goal is financial discipline, your level 1 is not to reorganize your entire portfolio. It is to track a single expense in your journal. You maintain the identity of someone who is conscious of their finances. If your goal is to build a business, your level 1 is not to finish a major project. It is to send 1 email. You maintain the identity of someone who takes action on their enterprise. The secret is this. Make the starting point of the action so ridiculously small that it is more effort to argue with it than to simply do it. And what you will often find, miraculously, is that once you begin the 10-minute walk, you might just feel up to walking for 15. Once you write the one sentence, another might follow. The action itself can sometimes generate the momentum that the feeling of motivation failed to provide. But even if it doesn't, you have fulfilled your contract. You have won the day. This leads us to the final and most profound layer of this principle, the unseen reward. The true prize for showing up on a stormy day is not the 10 minutes of walking or the single sentence written. The true prize is the deposit you make into the account of your own self-trust. This is the most valuable asset you will ever own. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, especially when it is difficult, especially when no one is watching you add to this account, you build a reputation with yourself. You teach the deepest part of your being that when you say something, it means something. You become a person whose word is bond, first and foremost, to yourself. Conversely, every time you make a promise and break it because of a fleeting feeling, you make a withdrawal from this account. You teach yourself that your commitments are conditional. You teach yourself that your resolve is weak. This quiet, internal erosion of self-respect is far more damaging to your long-term success than any single missed workout or skipped task. It is the spiritual rot that makes the entire structure of your life unstable. When you build the habit of honoring your base-level contract, you begin an upward spiral. You prove to yourself, on a daily basis, that you are the one in charge, not your moods, not your fatigue, not the weather. This creates a quiet, unshakable confidence that no amount of external praise or validation can ever replicate. It is the confidence of the master craftsman in their skill, of the seasoned captain in their ability to navigate a storm. This self-trust becomes the bedrock. It is the firm ground upon which all the other principles, all the larger ambitions, all the great works of your life can finally be built. So this first principle is not merely a tactic. It is a philosophy. It is the decision to build your house upon the rock of commitment rather than the sand of emotion. It is the understanding that true strength is not the absence of weakness, but the willingness to act in spite of it. If you can master this one idea, if you can build your days around this foundational commitment to show up, especially on the hard days, then the rest of the architecture will have something solid to stand upon. You will have forged the character required to execute any plan, in any season, for the rest of your life. We have now laid the cornerstone of our personal architecture. We have committed to the philosophy of building a foundation that can withstand the inevitable storms of life, a system of baseline habits that function even on our worst days. This is the principle of survival, of endurance. It ensures that when the winter comes, our structure will not collapse. But a foundation alone is not a house. It is merely a platform for what is to come. Now, we must begin the real work of building the walls. And this is the stage where most aspiring architects abandon their projects. It is here that we encounter the second great principle, a concept so countercultural and so profoundly misunderstood that it is often the dividing line between amateur dreamers and professional builders. This is the principle we will call the art of purposeful boredom. I want you to consider those three words carefully. The art, purposeful, boredom. We must learn to see the disciplined execution of mundane tasks not as a chore but as an art form. We must infuse the repetitive with purpose. And we must, most radically of all, learn to embrace boredom as a powerful and productive state. Our modern world is engaged in a war against boredom. We have been conditioned to believe that a moment without new stimulation is a moment wasted. Your phone, the television, the endless scroll of social media, these are all weapons in this war, designed to deliver a constant rapid-fire stream of novelty. Our brains are being rewired, day by day, to crave the next hit of dopamine, the next shocking headline, the next entertaining video. We live in a perpetual carnival of distraction, and this sickness has infected our understanding of success. We have been sold a myth. It is the myth of the exciting path. We have been told, through movies and stories and marketing, that the journey to achieving something great is supposed to be a thrilling, passionate adventure. We expect the process of getting in shape, building a business, or mastering a skill to be as exciting as the final result. This is perhaps the most debilitating lie of the 21st century. The truth, the reality that has governed human achievement for millennia, is this. The road to mastery, in any field, is paved with the bricks of repetition. The path to excellence is, by and large, boring. Imagine two prospectors in a vast, gold-rich territory. The first prospector is a man of excitement. He is addicted to the thrill of the new. Every morning, he rushes to a new, unexplored corner of the territory and begins to dig frantically. He is searching for that one massive, life-changing nugget of gold that he can find with a single lucky strike. He works with incredible intensity for an hour or two. If he finds nothing, he becomes discouraged. The excitement fades. He abandons the hole and tells himself that tomorrow he will try a different spot, a better spot. At the end of a year, his territory is pockmarked with hundreds of shallow, abandoned holes. He has a great many stories of adventure, but his pockets are empty. The second prospector is a woman of purpose. She is a student of the process. She spends her initial time studying the land and finds a single, promising claim. And then she begins to work. She shows up to the same spot every single day. The work is not exciting. It is the methodical, repetitive, back-breaking labor of digging, sifting, and panning. Most days, she finds nothing but dirt and rock, but occasionally, she finds a few small flakes of gold. She does not celebrate wildly. She simply puts them in her pouch and continues to work, day after day, week after week. The landscape of her life does not change much. It is the same claim, the same process. It is, by all external measures, boring. But at the end of a year, her pouch is heavy. At the end of a decade, she is wealthy. She did not find wealth. She accumulated it. We are all prospectors in the territory of our own potential. You must decide which one you will be. Will you be the one who chases the thrill of the new hole, or the one who embraces the purposeful boredom of working a single claim? To do this, we must first redefine our terms. There are two kinds of boredom. The first is empty boredom. This is the state of aimless, mindless distraction. It is scrolling through your phone with no purpose. It is flipping through channels on the television. It is a state of mental static, a waste of your life force. This is the boredom our culture tells us to flee. But there is a second, far more powerful kind. This is purposeful boredom. This is the deliberate, repeated execution of a fundamental task that you know is essential to a long-term outcome. It is the pianist practicing scales over and over. It is the athlete running drills over and over. It is the writer editing the same sentence over and over. This state is not empty. It is pregnant with potential. It is the soil in which mastery is grown. It is not the absence of stimulation. It is the disciplined focus of stimulation on a single vital process. This brings us to a critical distinction we must make: the difference between intensity and discipline. Intensity is the firework. It is a brilliant, spectacular, and loud explosion of effort. It is impressive to watch. It lights up the sky. It is the 2 weeks of 18-hour days. It is the crash diet. It is the New Year's resolution. It is immensely powerful, and it is completely unsustainable. It burns out, leaving nothing but smoke and a faint memory. Discipline is the glacier. A glacier is not spectacular. It is not loud. It is not fast. From day to day, its movement is imperceptible. It is the quiet, steady, relentless application of pressure over a great period of time. It is unimpressive in the short term. It is, in a word, boring. But the firework can do nothing to the mountain. The glacier can carve the face of the earth. Our society trains us to admire the firework. We celebrate stories of overnight success and intense, heroic effort. But you must train yourself to respect and embody the glacier. You must learn to value the quiet, unimpressive daily act of showing up and pushing forward millimeter by millimeter. The goal of this process is to achieve a state of automaticity. As we discussed in our first principle, you want to remove the need for daily negotiation. When you repeat a purposeful, boring task enough times, a miracle of neuroscience occurs. The action moves from the conscious, effortful part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to the automatic, habitual part of your brain, the basal ganglia. It ceases to be a choice that requires willpower. It simply becomes a part of who you are. Think of brushing your teeth. You do not wake up and search for the motivation to brush your teeth. You do not debate the pros and cons. You do not need an inspirational video to get you to do it. It is a non-negotiable, automatic part of your day. It has been ingrained through thousands of repetitions. It is simply what you do. The energy required is almost zero. Can you imagine the power in your life if your most important, needle-moving tasks, your exercise, your savings, your creative work, your learning became as automatic as brushing your teeth? That is the promise of purposeful boredom. So how do we achieve this? How do we, in a practical sense, learn to embrace the mundane? There are 3 key tactics. The first tactic is a profound mindset shift. You must marry the process and divorce the results. Most people are emotionally attached to immediate, visible results. They go to the gym for a week, and if they do not see a dramatic change in the mirror, they become discouraged. They work on their business for a month, and if they are not yet profitable, they conclude that it is not working. Their emotional well-being is tied to a distant outcome they cannot directly control. This is a recipe for despair. The master, in any field, learns to detach from the immediate outcome and fall in love with the process itself. The professional writer learns to find satisfaction in the act of arranging words on a page, regardless of whether the book is a bestseller. The dedicated musician learns to find joy in the feeling of their fingers on the keys, in the pursuit of a perfect note, regardless of whether there is an audience. You must learn to find the beauty and dignity in the repetition itself. You must see the daily act of showing up not as a means to an end, but as a worthy end in itself. You are not just building a future result. You are building your character, right now, through the act of disciplined practice. When you can find satisfaction in the process, the results become an inevitable byproduct. The second tactic is to create a ritual, not a routine. These two words may seem similar, but they are worlds apart. A routine is something you have to do. It sounds sterile, mechanical, and joyless. A ritual is something you get to do. A ritual is a routine that is infused with meaning and intention. By reframing your boring tasks as sacred rituals, you elevate them. Your 30 minutes of exercise in the morning is not just a routine. It is a ritual for honoring your physical health and preparing your mind for the day. Your 15 minutes of reading a difficult book is not just a routine. It is a ritual for sharpening your intellect. The act of sitting down to review your finances is not a chore. It is a ritual of taking command of your economic future. This is not just a word game. When you treat an action as a ritual, you bring a different energy to it. You create a specific time and space for it. You eliminate distractions. You give it the respect it deserves. You are communicating to the deepest part of your being that this is not just another task to be checked off a list. This is a sacred block of time dedicated to the building of the person you intend to become. The third tactic is to track the repetitions, not just the milestones. Our brains are wired to seek rewards. If the only reward you are focused on is a distant goal, losing 50 pounds, earning $1 million, the feedback loop is too long. Your brain will lose interest. You must create a shorter, more immediate feedback loop. And the best way to do that is to track the act of showing up. Get a simple wall calendar. For every day that you complete your designated ritual, put a big, satisfying X on that day. Your goal is no longer to lose 50 pounds. Your immediate goal is much simpler. Don't break the chain. This simple act gamifies the process. The reward is no longer a distant, abstract concept. The reward is the visceral satisfaction of marking that X, of seeing the chain of consistency grow longer each day. You are rewarding the process, not the result. And when you reward the process gets repeated. When the process gets repeated, the results are guaranteed. The profound rewards of this boring path are threefold. The first reward is the birth of mastery. Mastery is not the result of a single brilliant insight. It is the cumulative, compounded effect of thousands of hours of purposeful, boring practice. The repetition is what carves the deep neural pathways in your brain. It is what builds the intuitive, reflexive understanding that separates the amateur from the professional. There are no shortcuts to this process. Mastery is the child of repetition. The second reward is the forging of unshakable character. Character is not built when things are exciting and everyone is watching. Character is built in the quiet, lonely moments. It is forged when you choose to show up for your ritual, when you are tired, when you are bored, when no one on earth would know if you skipped it. This act builds a silent, internal strength. It proves to you, over and over, that your commitment is more powerful than your comfort. It builds the integrity we spoke of earlier, the foundation of all self-respect. The final reward is the great paradox, true freedom. By chaining yourself to a disciplined, boring ritual, you are liberated. You are freed from the prison of your own whims and moods. You are freed from the constant, draining negotiation of, should I or shouldn't I? You are freed from the anxiety of inaction and the regret of wasted potential. You earn the quiet peace of mind that comes from knowing that no matter what else happens today, you have honored the process. You have laid another brick in the wall of your future. The foundation we discussed in our first principle allows your structure to survive the storm. This second principle, the art of purposeful boredom, is the discipline required to lay the bricks, day after day, in sunshine or in rain. One is about endurance. The other is about progress. Now that we understand the necessity of showing up, even when it is difficult, and the art of repeating the work, even when it is boring, we must turn our attention to the work itself. How do we take the grand vision of our architecture and break it down into these small, repeatable daily actions? This brings us to our next principle. We have now established the first two pillars of our personal architecture. With our first principle, we committed to building a foundation that can withstand the inevitable storms of life, ensuring our structure survives the winter. With our second, we embrace the art of purposeful boredom, understanding that the unglamorous, repetitive work of laying bricks day after day is the only path to mastery. One principle is about survival. The other is about the nature of the work itself. But even with the strongest foundation and the highest quality bricks, the entire structure can be jeopardized by the manner in which we build. The pace, the energy, the philosophy of our daily labor will determine whether our structure rises with integrity and grace, or whether it cracks and collapses under its own weight. This brings us to our third core principle, a subtle but profound shift in operational philosophy that separates the exhausted amateur from the sustainable professional. It is the principle of building with rhythm, not pressure. Let us begin by diagnosing the disease of pressure. Pressure is the default state of the modern world. It is a self-imposed prison of the mind, a tyranny of the urgent. You know this feeling. It is the constant, nagging sense that you are behind. It is the frantic, scattered energy that comes from staring at a to-do list that is longer than the day itself. It is the voice of the inner taskmaster, the one that whispers, "You must do this now. You are not doing enough, and you are running out of time." Pressure has two primary sources. The first is external. These are the legitimate demands of life. Deadlines at work, financial obligations, the needs of our families. These pressures are real and a part of any meaningful life. But they are manageable. The far more dangerous and destructive source of pressure is internal. This is the pressure we manufacture ourselves. It is the pressure that comes from perfectionism, the debilitating need to do everything flawlessly. It is the pressure that comes from an all-or-nothing mindset, where anything less than a spectacular success is deemed a total failure. And most of all, it is the pressure that comes from tying our sense of self-worth to our immediate output and our daily productivity. When we live under the dominion of internal pressure, our lives begin to resemble a flood. A flood is a spectacular display of power. A tremendous amount of water, a tremendous amount of energy is unleashed all at once. But it is chaotic, unfocused, and destructive. It erodes the most fertile topsoil and leaves devastation in its wake. This is the operational model of the student who waits until the night before the exam to study, cramming in a panic. It is the model of the employee who procrastinates until the deadline is hours away, working in a flurry of stress and adrenaline fueled by caffeine and fear. They may get the job done, but at what cost? After the flood, there is only exhaustion. The land is barren. The energy is gone. This is not a high-performance state, it is a survival state. And a life lived in a perpetual state of survival is a life diminished. Physiologically, a life of pressure is a life lived in a chronic state of fight or flight. It is a life marinated in the stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline. This state depletes our deepest energy reserves. It compromises our immune system, it harms our physical health. And most critically for the architect, it stifles our highest mental faculties. The brain under pressure cannot think deeply. It cannot be creative. It cannot see the bigger picture. It is locked into a narrow, reactive, short-term survival mode. You cannot design a cathedral while you are running from a tiger, and most of us are living with a metaphorical tiger in our minds every single day. Now, let us consider the alternative. The cure for the disease of pressure is the liberating power of rhythm. When I speak of rhythm, I do not mean the monotonous, soul-crushing life of a robot. I mean the alignment with natural, powerful, and sustainable patterns. Look to nature, the greatest of all architects. Nature does not operate on pressure, it operates on rhythm. The tides do not force their way onto the shore in one massive, frantic push. The ocean rises and falls with a calm, predictable, and immensely powerful rhythm. Its power comes not from frantic effort, but from its alignment with a cosmic pattern. Consider your own heartbeat. Your very life depends on a steady, consistent rhythm. An erratic, panicked, and racing heartbeat is not a sign of high performance. It is a sign of crisis. A calm, strong, and steady rhythm is the sign of health and vitality. You must learn to cultivate the same calm, strong rhythm in your work and in your days. Let us return to our analogy of the water. If pressure is the flood, rhythm is the river. A river is not as spectacular as a flood, not from moment to moment. It flows, it is calm, it is predictable, its path is defined. Yet, with its gentle, persistent, rhythmic flow, the river can over time carve the Grand Canyon. It achieves a feat of engineering that the chaotic flood could never accomplish. The river is a testament to the supreme power of relentless consistency over frantic brute force. Pressure operates on adrenaline. Adrenaline is a finite and metabolically expensive fuel. It is a loan taken from your future vitality. Rhythm, on the other hand, builds its own momentum. Imagine a massive heavy flywheel. It takes a significant, focused effort to get it started. The first few rotations are a grind. But once it is spinning, it maintains its motion with very little additional energy. It has inertia. Each completed cycle of the rhythm makes the next cycle easier. This is sustainable momentum. It is the momentum that does not lead to burnout. A brain that follows a rhythm is a calm brain. It is not wasting precious cognitive resources wondering what to do next. It is not constantly battling internal resistance in negotiation. It knows the pattern. This calmness is not laziness. It is the prerequisite for elite focus. The great thinkers, the master craftsmen, the brilliant strategists, they do not operate from a place of frantic panic. They operate from a place of deep, rhythmic calm. This is the state where true insight and creativity are born. So the choice is clear. We must abandon the chaotic, destructive, and exhausting model of the flood, and we must adopt the calm, powerful, and sustainable model of the river. But how? How do we, in practical terms, install rhythm into the architecture of our daily lives? It begins with the principle of bookends. For many people, the middle of the day is unpredictable. Chaos is the nature of their work. The key is not to control every minute, but to anchor your day with two pillars of unshakable rhythm. You must control the absolute beginning of your day and the absolute end of your day. The morning bookend is your ritual for priming. It is not about reacting to the world by immediately checking your phone or email. That is to begin your day as a tenant, responding to the landlord's demands. Instead, the architect's morning is a proactive ritual. It might involve hydration, a few minutes of physical movement to awaken the body, a period of silence or meditation to calm the mind, and a brief review of the day's blueprint, the most important tasks you have chosen to accomplish. This ritual, performed with consistency, sets the tone for the entire day. It ensures you begin from a place of proactive calm, not reactive chaos. The evening bookend is your ritual for closure. So many of us bleed our work lives into our personal lives, never truly disconnecting, carrying the stress of unfinished tasks with us to bed. This results in poor sleep and a depleted start to the next day. The shutdown ritual is a clear signal to your mind that the workday is over. It might involve tidying your workspace, closing all the loops you can, reviewing the day's progress, and making a simple plan for tomorrow. This act of planning for the next day is critical. It downloads the worries from your mind onto paper, freeing your brain to truly rest and recover. Following this, you can transition to a period of quiet reading or time with family, allowing your mind to wind down. Even if the 8 hours between these two bookends are filled with storms and chaos, these two pillars of rhythm will hold your day together. They provide stability, a sense of control, and a predictable pattern that your mind can hold on to. The second tactic in building rhythm is to use time blocking, not to-do lists. A simple to-do list is often a source of pressure. It is a long, daunting list of everything you haven't done. It stares at you, judging you. Time blocking is a source of rhythm. You take your most important tasks, and you give them a home in your calendar. You are not just listing what you have to do. You are making a concrete plan for when and for how long you will do it. A block in your calendar that says 9 a.m., 10:30 a.m., work on project blueprint, is a powerful statement. During that 90-minute period, you have one job, not 21. You are not worried about email. You are not thinking about your other tasks. You are fully present in that block of time, dedicated to that single purpose. This eliminates the constant, energy-draining negotiation of, what should I do next? It transforms your day from a chaotic scramble into a series of focused, rhythmic pulses. This leads us to the third tactic, the power of pulsing. Sustainable rhythm is not a flat, monotonous drone of continuous effort. That is the rhythm of the factory floor, not the creative architect. A truly effective rhythm pulses. It is an oscillation between intense, focused work and genuine, dedicated rest. The myth of our culture is that to do more, you must work more hours. The reality is that to do more, you must focus more intensely, and to focus more intensely, you must rest more effectively. The highest performers in any field do not work for 8 hours straight. They work in focused sprints, followed by periods of real recovery. You might work in a 90-minute pulse, where for that hour and a half, you are completely focused on a single high-value task. No distractions. Then, you follow that with a 20-minute pulse of genuine rest. And rest does not mean checking social media. That is fake rest. It just bombards your brain with more stimulation. Real rest is stepping away from the screen. It is walking outside, stretching, hydrating, or simply sitting in silence. There is a classic story of two woodcutters. The first woodcutter was a man of brute force. He decided to chop wood for 8 hours straight, without a break. The second woodcutter worked in a rhythm. He would chop wood for 50 minutes, and then he would take a 10-minute break to sit down and sharpen his axe. The first woodcutter scoffed at him, seeing his breaks as a sign of weakness and laziness. Yet, at the end of the day, the second woodcutter, the one who pulsed between work and rest, had a dramatically larger pile of wood, because his 10 minutes of rest were not laziness, they were the most productive part of his rhythm. He was sharpening his tool. Your mind is your axe. Rhythm and rest are how you keep it sharp. When you abandon the tyranny of pressure and embrace the liberating power of rhythm, a profound internal shift occurs. The frantic, anxious energy of being behind is replaced by the calm, confident energy of being on the path. The fear of the deadline is replaced by a trust in the daily process. The scattered, reactive mind is replaced by a focused, proactive mind. And here is the ultimate paradox. This rhythmic structure does not create a cage. It creates freedom. It is the trellis that guides the vine. When your essential foundational tasks are handled by your automated rhythm, your conscious mind is liberated. It is free to be creative. It is free to handle unexpected challenges with grace. It is free to be truly present with your loved ones, not half distracted by the 100 undone tasks rattling around in your head. Our foundation from the first principle allows us to work in any season. Our commitment to the process from the second principle keeps us laying bricks, even when it is boring. This third principle of rhythm ensures that the manner in which we work is sustainable, powerful, and ultimately, peaceful. It is the steady beat of the drum that allows the entire enterprise of our life to move forward, steadily and with integrity, without burning out or breaking down. Now that we have established how to approach our work with a foundation for storms, a respect for the process, and a sustainable rhythm, we must turn to the work itself. How do we take the grand, overwhelming vision of our life's cathedral and break it down into the simple, daily rhythms of laying one stone at a time? This is the question that leads us to our next principle. We have now established the foundational mindset of the architect. We understand the necessity of a solid foundation, the dignity of the process, and the sustainable power of rhythm. We have moved from the why to the how. You have made it this far, which tells me you are not a casual observer. You are a student of this philosophy. You are serious about the work. If you are committed to completing this architectural training, to learning how to transform your grandest visions into the small daily bricks of reality, then I invite you to make that commitment official. Take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel. Think of it as your official enrollment in this Academy of Personal Architecture. By doing so, you ensure you won't miss the critical principles to come, and you join a community of builders who are on this same path. Once you have done that, let us continue. The most practical and transformative work is yet to come. We have come a long way on our architectural journey. With our first principle, we laid a foundation of all-weather habits, a structure designed to withstand the inevitable storms of life. With our second, we committed ourselves to the art of purposeful boredom, embracing the quiet, repetitive work of laying bricks, day after day, as the only true path to mastery. And with our third principle, we have established a sustainable, powerful rhythm to our work, choosing the relentless flow of the river over the chaotic destruction of the flood. We have established the how we must work, the when we must work, and the emotional fortitude required to continue the work. But now we arrive at a new, more subtle, and for many the most difficult challenge of all. We arrive at the question of what? We stand before the grand vision of our life's cathedral. We see it in our mind's eye, the thriving business, the healthy and vibrant body, the masterful skill, the life of financial independence and peace of mind. We see the finished masterpiece. And as we stand at the foot of this grand vision, we are confronted with its sheer, overwhelming scale. The distance between where we are now and where we wish to be appears so vast that it can paralyze the will and extinguish the spirit before a single step is taken. This is the paradox of the grand vision. And resolving it is the focus of our fourth principle, the art and science of breaking down big ideas into repeatable bricks. Let us first examine the psychology of this paralysis. Why is it that a big, beautiful, inspiring goal so often leads to chronic inaction? It is a function of how our minds are wired. Our brain is a magnificent survival machine, and one of its primary functions is to assess threats and manage energy. When it is confronted with an enormous gap between your current reality, which is known and safe, and a distant desired future, which is unknown and difficult, it often perceives that gap as a threat. The sheer number of unknown steps, unforeseen obstacles, and required efforts between point A and point Z is computationally overwhelming. Your conscious mind may feel inspired, but your subconscious survival brain sounds an alarm. It signals that the energy required for this journey is immense, and the probability of success is uncertain. In the face of such a threat, the brain often defaults to one of its primal safety mechanisms. It freezes. Procrastination is rarely a sign of laziness. It is most often a symptom of overwhelm. It is the mind's defensive reaction to a goal that feels too large, too abstract, and too distant to be real. This paralysis is compounded by the cultural myths we have been fed. Our culture does not celebrate the slow, patient, incremental journey. It celebrates the quantum leap. It tells us stories of overnight success, of the one brilliant idea that changed everything, of the heroic, dramatic bound from obscurity to fame. This creates a destructive expectation. We start to believe that progress is supposed to be a great leap, and when we find ourselves unable to make such a leap, we conclude that we are flawed. But this is an illusion. All significant, lasting progress in the history of the world has been the result of incremental, cumulative effort. Great walls are built one stone at a time. Great journeys are traveled one step at a time. Imagine you are standing at the base of a great mountain, its peak shrouded in clouds. If your entire focus is on the summit, on the distant, seemingly impossible goal, you will be crushed by the sheer scale of the endeavor. The thought of the thousands of steps, the treacherous ridges, the unpredictable weather, it is enough to make you turn back before you have even begun. The wise climber, the architect of their ascent, does not fixate on the summit. The summit provides the general direction, the guiding star, but their focus, their entire mental and physical energy, is on the single step they are taking right now, and then the next one, and then the one after that. Their goal is not conquer the mountain. Their goal is take 10 more steps and then rest. Their goal is reach that next ridge before noon. The grand vision is the compass, but the daily work is the single footstep. To focus on the summit while you are still in the valley is to invite despair. Our grand ideas are the mountains of our lives. We must learn to be patient, methodical climbers. This brings us to the guiding philosophy of this principle, what I call the sculptor's philosophy. Imagine a great artist standing before a massive, shapeless block of marble. They are not intimidated by it. They do not see it as an obstacle. They see it as an opportunity. For within that raw, unformed stone, they can already see the finished masterpiece. The masterpiece is not something they will create out of nothing. It is something they will reveal. The art of the sculptor is not an art of addition. It is an art of subtraction. The sculptor's job is to patiently, skillfully, and methodically chip away everything that is not the masterpiece. Think about this profound idea. Your potential, that ideal version of yourself, the life you imagine that is the masterpiece already dormant within the block of your current habits and circumstances. Your big idea, your grand goal, is your vision of the finished statue, and the small, repeatable actions we will discuss. These are the individual taps of the chisel and hammer. With each small, disciplined action, you are not just adding something to your life. You are chipping away at what is holding you back. When you choose to go for a walk instead of sitting on the couch, you are chipping away at lethargy. When you choose to read a book instead of scrolling through your phone, you are chipping away at ignorance. When you make the sales call you have been dreading, you are chipping away at fear. When you choose to save $10 instead of spending it, you are chipping away at financial instability. Each daily action is a tap of the chisel, removing the excess stone of your old self to reveal the masterpiece that lies beneath. There is a story, perhaps apocryphal, of the great sculptor Michelangelo. When asked by the Pope how he created his masterpiece, the statue of David, from a single block of marble, he is said to have replied, "It was easy. I just chipped away everything that wasn't David." This is the philosophy we must adopt. The work is not a grand, dramatic act of creation. It is a patient, rhythmic, and subtractive act of revelation. This connects directly to our second principle. The sculptor learns to marry the process. They do not despise the dust, the noise, or the tediousness of the work. They find a deep rhythmic satisfaction in the process itself, in the feel of the chisel in their hand, in the knowledge that each small, seemingly insignificant chip is bringing the final, magnificent form one step closer to reality. So how do we become sculptors? How do we take our shapeless block of marble, our grand ambition, and begin to chip away at it? This requires a mechanical, logical process. I call it the mechanics of decomposition. The first tactic is the power of reverse engineering from the future. You must learn to work backward from your vision. Begin with the finished cathedral. See it clearly in your mind. Let us say the grand vision is to build a life of financial freedom in 10 years. Now, you work backward. To achieve that in 10 years, what must be true in 5 years? Perhaps you must have a certain amount of assets invested and be debt-free. To achieve that in 5 years, what must be true in 1 year? Perhaps you must have paid off a significant portion of your debt and established a consistent investment habit. To achieve that in 1 year, what must be true in the next 90 days? Perhaps you must have a written budget, an automatic savings plan in place, and have read 3 key books on personal finance. To achieve that in 90 days, what must you do this month, this week? And this process continues, all the way down, until it answers the only question that truly matters. What is the one brick I must lay today? Perhaps the answer is, today, my one brick is to sit down for 30 minutes and track all of my last week's spending. Or, today, my one brick is to make the phone call to set up an automatic transfer of $50 to my savings account. Do you see the magic in this process? We have taken a terrifying abstract mountain called financial freedom and transformed it into a simple, concrete, non-intimidating, and completely achievable task that can be done today. The paralysis vanishes. The path becomes clear. You have found your first piece of stone to chip away. This leads to the second tactic. You must learn to define the brick, not the wall. The tasks you set for yourself must be physical, observable, and concrete actions, not abstract outcomes. The brain cannot execute an abstraction. Get in shape is not a brick. That is the name of the wall. It is an abstract outcome. A brick is walk for 20 minutes this afternoon. A brick is do a set of 10 push-ups right now. A brick is drink a glass of water instead of a soda with lunch. Start a business is not a brick. That is the name of the entire cathedral. A brick is spend 30 minutes researching one potential competitor. A brick is write a single paragraph for the About Us page of the website. A brick is send one email to a potential mentor. The defining characteristic of a well-defined brick is that its completion is binary. It is a simple yes or no. At the end of the day, you can ask yourself, did I do my 10 push-ups? The answer is either yes or no. There is no ambiguity. This clarity is a balm to the overwhelmed mind. It gives you a clear target and allows you to experience a clean, satisfying sense of completion at the end of the day. The third tactic is perhaps the most practical of all. It is the first 2 minutes rule. This is how we connect the grand work of the sculptor to our base-level contract from the first principle. The greatest friction in any task is always at the very beginning. The force of inertia is at its strongest when you are at rest. The architect's job is to make the initial act of starting so impossibly easy that it requires more energy to resist it than to do it. So, you break down the very beginning of the action into its own tiny brick. Your commitment is not write for an hour. Your commitment is open the document, put my hands on the keyboard, and write one sentence. That's it. That is the victory for the day if need be. Your commitment is not go for a 5-mile run. Your commitment is put on my running shoes and step out the front door. The first 2 minutes are the gateway to the larger rhythm. What you will find, more often than not, is that once you have written one sentence, a second one follows. Once you are outside in your running shoes, you might as well walk for a few minutes. The initial friction has been overcome. The flywheel has begun to turn. This brings us to the ultimate power of this principle. The awesome, transformative force of the single brick is revealed over time through the magic of compounding. Albert Einstein is often credited with calling compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. We understand this concept in our finances. We know that a small amount of money, invested consistently, can grow into a fortune over decades. Yet, we so often fail to apply this infallible law to the other areas of our lives. If you can get just 1% better at something every single day, the mathematics of that progression are staggering. A 1% improvement each day for a year does not make you 365% better. Because of the compounding effect, it makes you nearly 38 times better. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day by choosing inaction, by letting your skills atrophy at the end of a year, you are left with almost nothing. The single brick laid today seems insignificant. The 10 minutes of reading, the single sales call, the 20-minute walk. On its own, it appears to accomplish nothing. But the cumulative, compounding effect of that daily, repeated action is the most powerful force for transformation in the universe. This is how true, sustainable momentum is born. It is not born from a single, heroic, all-out effort. That is the explosive, short-lived momentum of the firework. True momentum, the relentless momentum of the glacier, is born from the quiet victory of laying one brick, then another, then another. Each completed action, no matter how small, creates a tiny spark of psychological energy. It is a small deposit in the bank of self-trust. It proves to you that you are a person who does what they say they will do. This makes the laying of the next brick slightly easier. And the next, easier still. This is the real flywheel we spoke of, spinning faster and faster, not with the frantic energy of pressure, but with the calm, powerful energy of accumulated success. The sculptor does not see the block of marble as an intimidating obstacle, but as a canvas of opportunity. The architect does not see the empty lot as a void, but as a space waiting for a vision. By learning to break down our grandest ambitions into the humble, repeatable rhythm of laying a single daily brick, we fundamentally transform our relationship with our goals. We cease to be the terrified tourist at the bottom of the mountain. We become the patient, methodical, and confident climber, with our eyes on the path, taking one sure-footed step at a time, knowing that the summit is not a matter of hope, but simply a matter of time and repetition. We have our foundation. We have committed to the process. We have found our rhythm. And now, we have our brick. We have everything we need to begin the real work of building. But what happens when we lay a brick crookedly? What happens when we stumble on the path? What happens when our efforts do not produce the results we expected? This brings us to the crucial next stage of our architecture. How to design a structure that doesn't just anticipate failure, but is actually strengthened by it. We stand now at a critical juncture in our architectural journey. We have laid a formidable groundwork. With our first principle, we designed a foundation to withstand the inevitable stormy days of low energy and passing difficulty. With our second, we embraced the art of purposeful boredom, committing to the quiet, repetitive work of laying bricks as the only true path to mastery. With our third, we established a sustainable and powerful rhythm, choosing the relentless flow of the river over the chaotic flood of pressure. And with our fourth, we have learned the art of the sculptor, the crucial skill of taking a grand, intimidating vision and breaking it down into a single, concrete, repeatable brick we can lay each day. We have designed a near-perfect system for progress. The blueprint is clear. The materials are ready. The work ethic is in place. But in all this planning, we have so far failed to account for one final, inconvenient, and absolutely fundamental truth. You, the architect, are human. And the human system, no matter how well designed or well-intentioned, inevitably from time to time will crash. This brings us to our fifth principle, a principle not of progress, but of preservation. It is the design of your emergency systems. It is the discipline of building a structure that holds you up when you crash. First, we must draw a clear and vital distinction between a bad day, which we discussed in our first principle, and a crash. A bad day is a day of low resources. You are tired, distracted, or unmotivated. Your base-level contract, your 10-minute walk, your single sentence of writing is the tool designed for this. A bad day is a storm that your foundation is built to withstand. A crash is different. A crash is a systemic failure. It is a tidal wave that overwhelms the foundation. A crash is the day you receive devastating news. It is the week the flu lays you out, leaving you with zero physical energy. It is the month a major project you have poured your heart into collapses at work. It is a period of intense grief, of acute burnout, of profound personal failure. A crash is a moment when your emotional, mental, and physical resources are not just low, they are at or near absolute zero. It is a time when even your most minimal bad day habit can feel like an impossible demand. And what happens in the absence of a plan for these moments? A catastrophic domino effect. The crash occurs. You completely abandon all your disciplines, telling yourself you will get back to them when things are better. But one day of doing nothing bleeds into a second. The inertia of inaction takes hold. A day of poor eating and no movement becomes a week. That week of low energy and brain fog leads to missed deadlines and growing anxiety, which in turn becomes a month of feeling completely off track and overwhelmed. Before you know it, a single crash event has erased 6 months of hard-won progress. The initial crash was not the ultimate problem. The problem was the lack of a protocol. The problem was the lack of a structure designed specifically for the moment of impact. Consider a well-designed ship. Its primary systems are for forward motion: the engine, the rudder, the sails. This is the architecture of progress. But the true genius of naval architecture lies in its emergency systems. It has lifeboats. It has emergency beacons. It has watertight compartments that can be sealed off when the hull is breached, preventing a single point of failure from sinking the entire vessel. The captain and crew are drilled relentlessly on emergency protocols. Your life, your personal architecture, requires no less. You must design your watertight compartments. You must prepare your lifeboats. You must have a clear, predefined protocol for the moment the hull is breached. This is where we must confront another great and dangerous myth of our culture: the fallacy of heroic willpower. We are told inspiring stories of the hero who, at their absolute lowest point, beaten and broken, summons a magical, superhuman reserve of willpower from the depths of their soul and miraculously overcomes the insurmountable obstacle. While these stories are entertaining, as a life strategy, they are a catastrophic failure. Here is the unvarnished truth. Willpower is a finite, high-energy cognitive resource. It is like the charge in a battery, and a crash, by its very definition, is a state of profound energy depletion. Your willpower battery is the first resource to be drained to zero during a crash. Therefore, relying on willpower to save you when you have crashed is the strategic equivalent of relying on your savings account to pay for a house fire after you have already spent all the money. The resource you are counting on is the very resource the crisis has eliminated. When we believe that willpower is the answer, what happens when it inevitably fails us in our moment of crisis? We compound the failure with shame. We blame ourselves. We engage in a destructive internal monologue. I should be stronger than this. Why can't I just pull myself together? I am weak. I am a failure. This shame becomes a second wave of the storm, often more damaging than the first. It is a heavy, wet blanket of guilt that smothers the last embers of your resolve, making it even harder to get back up. In this flawed model, the true damage is not done by the crash itself, but by the brutal self-flagellation that follows. Structure is the antidote to this heroic failure model. Willpower is an in-the-moment, emotional, high-energy resource. Structure is a pre-decided, logical, low-energy system. It is a gift you give to yourself. It is the distilled wisdom of your strongest, clearest, most rational self, packaged and delivered to your future, weakest self, at the moment they need it most. Think of an accomplished pilot. A pilot's greatness is not measured by their ability to fly smoothly in clear skies on a calm day. Any amateur can do that. A pilot's greatness is measured by how they react when a flock of birds strikes the engine at 10,000 feet. And how do they react? Not with panic, not with heroic, emotional improvisation. They react by executing a checklist. It is a predefined, rigorously tested, automatic emergency protocol that they have drilled 1,000 times in a simulator. In the moment of crisis, they do not have to think. They do not have to summon courage or willpower. They simply execute the next step on the checklist, then the next, then the next. It is the structure that flies the plane when the pilot is in shock. We must build these emergency checklists for our lives. So what does this crash kit, this personal emergency protocol, actually contain? It is not your normal routine. It is your emergency fallback system, designed with 3 core components. The first component is the non-zero anchor. This is an evolution of the base-level contract we designed for bad days. But it is even simpler. It is the one single ridiculously easy action that you promise to perform even on a day of total system failure. Its purpose is not progress. Its purpose is to prevent a total disconnect from your identity as an architect. It is a single, symbolic thread connecting you to the person you are committed to being. Your non-zero anchor might be, even if the world is falling apart today, I will make my bed. Why? Because in a world of overwhelming chaos, this is one small corner of the universe that you can bring into order. It is a powerful symbolic act that sends a message to your subconscious mind. I have not completely surrendered. Your anchor might be, I will drink one full glass of water upon waking before anything else. It is a minimal, fundamental act of self-care. It is a signal that says, even in this crisis, I recognize that this body is my responsibility, and I will perform the most basic act of maintenance. Choose one such anchor. Make it so simple it is almost laughable, and make it non-negotiable. The second component of your crash kit is the shutdown and reset checklist. This is your pilot's emergency protocol. The key is that it must be written down and kept in a place where you can easily find it. In a moment of crisis, your thinking brain goes offline. You cannot rely on your memory. You must rely on the written word, the wisdom of your past self. Your checklist should have no more than 5 steps. A sample checklist might look like this. 1. Disconnect. For the next 1 hour, turn off your phone, turn off your computer. Disconnect from all incoming stimuli. The world can wait. You must stop the bleeding of your attention. 2. Move. Step outside. If you cannot go outside, stand up. Walk around the room for 5 minutes. The physiology of your body is intimately linked to your mental state. Changing your physical state is the fastest way to begin to change your mental state. No destination. No goal. Just move. 3. Hydrate and nourish. Drink a full glass of water. Eat a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts. In moments of stress, we stop caring for our basic biological needs, which only deepens the crash. This is a simple, primal act of restoring resources. 4. Externalize. Take a piece of paper and a pen. For 10 minutes, write down every single thing that is worrying you, stressing you, and overwhelming you. Empty the contents of your panicked mind onto the page. Do not edit. Do not judge. Just get it out. This act of brain dumping creates cognitive space and reduces the feeling of being mentally suffocated. 5. Identify one brick. Look at the list you just created and ask yourself one simple question. What is the one single smallest thing on this list that I can take action on right now to make the situation 0.1% better? Not 10%, 0.1%. Is it making a phone call? Is it sending a single email? Is it throwing away one piece of trash on your desk? Identify that one tiny brick and do only that one thing. This checklist is your lifeboat. It is a simple, repeatable sequence that takes you from a state of overwhelmed panic paralysis to a state of calm, focused, singular action. The third component of your crash kit is the pre-planned environment. Your environment is one of the most powerful forces shaping your behavior, and its influence is magnified tenfold when you are in a weakened state. You must structure your physical and digital environments for your worst self, not your best self. This means having healthy, easy-to-prepare food readily available, so that when you crash, you do not default to ordering junk food that will only deepen your physical depletion. It means keeping your workspace, at the end of each day, in a clean and organized state. A cluttered external environment amplifies a cluttered internal environment. Do not leave a mess for your future crash self to deal with. And it means curating your digital space. Unsubscribe from draining email newsletters. Mute negative people on social media. Use tools and apps to block your biggest distracting websites. You are creating an environment with less friction. An environment that gently guides you toward better choices, even when you have no willpower to make them consciously. This brings us to the true meaning of resilience. True strength, true resilience, is not the ability to never fall down. It is not the absence of crashes. That is a fragile and brittle state, like glass. Glass is hard, but when it meets a force greater than its strength, it shatters into 1,000 pieces, never to be put back together again. True resilience is the quality of bamboo. A stalk of bamboo is not rigid. In a violent hurricane, it bends. It bends all the way to the ground. It appears to be broken. But when the storm passes, it slowly, gracefully, straightens back up, as strong as before. It bent without breaking. Your structure, your non-zero anchor, your reset checklist, your curated environment. This is the deep, flexible root system of the bamboo. It is what allows you to bend in the face of life's hurricanes without shattering. It is your clear, low-friction path back to your normal rhythm. A crash might last a day, it might last a week, but because you have a protocol, because you have a pre-planned path to recovery, it does not turn into a year-long disaster. You know how to reset. You know how to come back. This is the ultimate expression of compassion in your personal architecture. This system is not a tool for self-punishment. It is a profound act of self-compassion. It is your strongest, most capable self, leaving a lifeline and a clear set of instructions for your weakest, most vulnerable self. It is the ultimate act of planning for your own humanity. Our foundation from the first principle, our commitment to the process from the second, our sustainable rhythm from the third, and our breakdown of goals into single bricks from the fourth. This is our system for progress. This fifth principle, the crash kit, is our system for preservation. One system helps you build the cathedral. The other ensures that an earthquake does not reduce it to rubble before it is finished. It is the architect's insurance policy, the ultimate fail-safe. Now that we have a robust system for both progress and preservation, we are ready to confront the very fuel that powers this entire enterprise. The fundamental choice between the passive hope of wishful thinking and the generative power of concrete, daily action. This is what we will turn to next. We have now journeyed deep into the philosophy of personal architecture. We have laid a foundation designed to withstand the inevitable storms of life. We have committed to the quiet dignity of the art of purposeful boredom. We have chosen the sustainable, powerful rhythm of the river over the chaotic flood of pressure. We have learned the sculptor's secret of transforming a paralyzing mountain into a single, manageable daily brick. And we have installed the emergency protocols, the crash kit, to ensure that when we inevitably stumble, our entire structure does not collapse. We have the complete blueprint. We have the schedule for the work crew. We have the insurance policy. The architectural design is sound, robust, and complete. But a blueprint, no matter how brilliant, no matter how perfectly rendered, has never in the history of the world built a single house. It is a sterile, impotent document until it is met with the most potent, most creative, and most transformative force in the known universe. That force is action. This brings us to our sixth principle. This is not just another step in the process. This is the engine that drives the entire architectural enterprise. It is the spark that ignites the fuel. It is the hand that lays the brick. It is the non-negotiable mandate to replace wishful thinking with solid, daily action. Let us first diagnose the epidemic of our time. It is a subtle, seductive, and spiritually tranquilizing condition. It is the condition of wishful thinking. Most people spend the majority of their lives in this state. They spend more time, more energy, and more focus imagining a better life than they do actively building one. What is wishful thinking? It is not merely idle daydreaming. It is a sophisticated psychological mechanism. It is the act of mentally rehearsing a desired outcome, picturing the success, imagining the applause, feeling the relief of a problem solved. And in that moment of imagination, the brain releases a small measure of dopamine, the chemical of reward and pleasure. It gives you a taste of the victory, a fleeting sensation of accomplishment, without requiring any of the real-world effort, risk, or sacrifice. It is a form of emotional credit. You get to feel a little bit good now, in exchange for your inaction. But like all forms of debt, it has a devastatingly high interest rate, paid for with your potential, your time, and your self-respect. This is the seductive lie of wishful thinking. It feels productive. It feels like you are working on your goals. You tell yourself you are visualizing, you are manifesting, you are setting intentions. But when these mental exercises are not immediately and consistently followed by concrete, physical action, they become a dangerous form of self-soothing. They become a comforting fantasy, a mental anesthetic that allows you to tolerate the pain of an unchanged reality. They become the opium of the ambitious mind. Imagine a man who is starving. He has not eaten in days. He wanders into the finest restaurant in the city. The host seats him at a beautiful table and hands him a menu, elegantly bound in leather. And this starving man opens the menu and begins to study it. He spends the next 8 hours memorizing every appetizer, every entree, every dessert. He imagines the taste of the perfectly cooked steak. He visualizes the texture of the fresh-baked bread. He can almost smell the rich aroma of the coffee. He tells the waiter, in great detail, about the magnificent meal he is planning to have. But he never, ever orders. He starves to death while clutching the menu. The menu is the wish. The menu is the dream. The menu is the plan, the vision, the intention. Ordering the food is the action. Most of the world is starving to death, spiritually and metaphorically, while passionately studying the menu. This leads us to the great chasm that defines the human condition for so many. Let us revisit the idea of the two lives. The life you imagine, and the life your daily habits are actually building. The vast empty space between those two lives can be called the chasm of inaction. This chasm is not empty. It is filled with the ghosts of good intentions. It is littered with the skeletons of broken promises made to yourself. And rising from it is the quiet, constant hum of regret for the actions not taken. This is the place where potential goes to die. And the feeling you get when you stand at the edge of this chasm, looking across at the person you know you could be, is what most people describe as feeling stuck. The anxiety, the frustration, the low-grade depression that plagues modern life. This feeling does not, as most people believe, come from failure. You can fail, learn a lesson, and move on, feeling stronger and wiser. No, the stuck feeling comes from inaction. It is the psychic dissonance, the spiritual friction between what you know you are capable of and what your daily actions are demonstrating. Your spirit knows the truth of your potential. It knows the blueprint of the cathedral you were meant to build. And when it sees you spending your days in passive, wishful thinking, it screams at you in the only language it has, the language of anxiety, of dissatisfaction, of a deep and profound sense of unease. That feeling is not your enemy. It is a call to action. It is a signal from your higher self, begging you to close the gap. To close that gap, we must understand the critical difference between two words that are often confused: hope and faith. Hope, as it is commonly practiced, is passive. Hope is buying a lottery ticket and wishing for your numbers to be called. Hope is standing in the field and wishing for a harvest to appear. Hope is waiting for your ship to come in, without ever having built, funded, or launched a ship in the first place. Hope is the strategy of the tenant, who hopes the landlord will fix the leaky roof. It is a surrender of agency to external forces. Faith, on the other hand, is active. Faith is the architect who picks up a hammer and a nail because they have faith in the integrity of the blueprint. Faith is the farmer who rises at dawn to sow thousands of seeds in the hard soil because they have faith in the immutable laws of the harvest. Faith is the captain who steers their ship into the vast, empty ocean because they have faith in the compass and the stars. True faith is not a feeling. It is a verb. It is a choice that is demonstrated through work. Action is the physical manifestation of faith. It is faith in your blueprint. It is faith in the principle of cause and effect. It is faith in your own potential. There is an old parable of a father who had two sons. He went to the first son and said, "Go and work today in the vineyard." The son answered, "I will, sir," but he did not go. The father then went to the second son and gave the same order. The second son answered, "I will not." But later he changed his mind and went to do the work. The parable asks, which of the two did the will of his father? The answer is obvious. It was the one whose actions aligned with the request, not the one whose words did. Your goals, your dreams, your vision for your life, these are the requests from your highest self. Your daily actions are your true answer. So how do we begin to build the bridge across the chasm of inaction? How do we cultivate the physics of action in our lives? First, we must understand that action is the great clarifier. Most people believe they must first find clarity, and then they will be able to act. This is backward. You do not think your way to clarity. You act your way to clarity. A plan is nothing more than a well-researched guess. It is a theory. Action is the experiment that provides the data. You may have a brilliant theory for a new business, but it is only when you take the action of trying to sell your product to a real human being that you get immediate, unfiltered, priceless feedback. It is only when you take the action of going to the gym that you discover which exercises work for your body. It is only when you take the action of writing the first chapter that you discover what your book is truly about. Action is the cure for confusion. It is the antidote to the paralysis of overthinking. In any moment of doubt, uncertainty, or confusion, the architect's default setting must be to cultivate a bias toward action. When you do not know what to do something. Take the smallest possible brick from your plan, as we learned in our fourth principle, and lay it. Send the one email. Read the one page. Make the 5-minute phone call. This bias toward action is what breaks the hypnotic spell of procrastination and generates the momentum needed for the next step. Second, we must reframe our entire approach through the power of identity. Wishful thinking is always framed in the language of lack. It says, I want to be a writer. I want to be healthy. I want to be financially secure. The focus is on a future state that you do not currently possess. An action-oriented life is framed in the language of identity. It does not say, I want to be a writer. It says, I am the kind of person who writes every single day. Do you see the profound shift? You do not need to feel inspired to act in accordance with your chosen identity. A person who identifies as a runner runs. It is who they are.